Hi, good afternoon all. It's a pleasure to be here. First of all, let me convey my thanks to the IIBF for giving me this honor to come and express my views with all of you. I like to keep it very simple. Technology is something that, every one's sometimes, afraid of. You don't really understand what it is, how it is functioning, how it is beneficial. We've already had probably the most inspiring speech on the power of analytics. And I don't think so that we need to spend any more time on what is the value add that it can provide. I mean, there were numerous examples which I can go back and take away to my bank and, actually help them on their course. So, but let me try and give out a perspective from the other side, as to how, what is technology, what it is doing, and how can it help power all that was, discussed. Typically, analytics has been run in a pretty much traditional manner. The traditional manner being you have data, and largely that data has been structured. When we say structured data, it's the data which is there in your, relational tables, relational databases, your core banking systems, loan systems, and others. And you ship off that data through the traditional ETL tools into a data warehouse. It's all structured data. And then you run queries, models, it could be statistical packages through traditional tools to come out with reports, findings, insights, whatever we might want to call it. Now that's been the traditional practice of analytics. And that's something that has been prevalent. It has paid its dividends in due course of time, and it's still going to keep on continuing. What I would like to focus for 5 minutes is actually on the disruptive technology that is going to change this entire game. And that's big data. Let's understand the problems which everyone is facing today. We're talking about scale. Every bank, every organization is talking about scale. The world has seen a growth of data that they have never experienced before. Now, the traditional tools and technologies that I have just discussed, they fail pretty much badly when we are trying to analyze this amount of data. So imagine there is a data analyst. He wants to fire a query on a data warehouse, and that query, and the data warehouse we talk about is a very special kind of an appliance. It's engineered to give you good query performance. It's not like a traditional OLTP database, like an Oracle database or a MS SQL Server database, which are largely meant for ACID, online transactions. These are purpose-built appliances for, query fetching. It's still taking so much time. It's still taking, hours. Some of them are running overnight. What does it do? It limits the capability of this analyst to perform his job better. If he has to do 10 things, he probably gets done 6 things. So this is the best he can do. He makes adjustments. He says, okay, let me shorten my data set. Let me not analyze 1 year. Let me not analyze 10 years. Let me analyze 6 months. Let me leave off this data. Let me only focus on this. Let me at least get something done. So he is making adjustments, compromises. And those compromises might be a big gap, right? So technology now needs to power this analyst through a technology, through a platform by which he can, mine and, analyze vast amounts of data. Scale is the paramount factor. The second factor that I want to highlight over here is the type of data, the richness of data. Typically, we've always spoken about structured data. These are data tables, databases. All of us would be aware. This is something that every person today knows of. What about data which is not in those databases? What about data which is in your clickstream logs? What about data which is in your application server, logging files? What about data which is not even yours, which you can add through external third-party providers, such as, let's say, a Google API, right? I heard a very brilliant example. How do you know this is a transfer to a third-party bank? Okay, let's take a case of Yes Bank. A customer transacts How do I get to know he's transacted at Amazon? Probably through narration. Now, everybody knows what an Amazon is. But let's take the same example, and you do text mining, and you figure out, okay, this customer is transacting as Chandras. Now, what is Chandras? How do you correlate Chandras? Do you get a person to figure out what is Chandras? Right? You can get to know, okay, this is probably this classification, but what is Chandras? Nobody knows what is Chandras. How do you enrich this data? So you can today integrate with services provided by Google to actually figure out what is Chandras and enrich your understanding. Okay, this is a transaction happening at this merchant. This is the category of the merchant. He is typically a fast food retail outlet in Connaught Place, Delhi. These are his coordinates. These are his happening times, and this is the kind of review that this guy gets. He's a good retailer to be aware of. It's humanly impossible to put a team of people to do this, but it's technically, completely possible to get this and get it running. Today, we're talking about data coming in from all sorts of devices. We're talking about the IoTs, the Internet of Things. We're talking about JSON. We're talking about XML. These are data sources nobody has even dreamed of analyzing. What if I today tell you, we have the capability of firing a SQL query on a JSON message? What if I today tell you that I can forget about the fact of parsing anything, just put in any kind of data source, write once a day, and then just fire a query and run it like an Oracle database at the back end. It's as seamless as that. That is the power of big data, what it is bringing to you. So it's helping you analyze scale. It's helping you analyzing, the richness, the variety of data. Most importantly, for us at least, it provides you analytics at a very cheap, optimized cost, scalable manner. Traditional analytics has been very, very expensive. Whether they talk about the IBMs of the world, the Oracles of the world, or you talk about SaaS, they burn deep holes in your pockets, right? Big data does not. It provides you a scalable model to do things which you have never dreamt of doing before. It provides you platforms by which you can actually ask questions which you have never asked before at a very, very cost-optimized rates. And it's scalable. As you scale, you can scale your infrastructure without burning holes in your pocket. So that's very important. It also is providing a unified platform. So as was rightly mentioned, BSE has converted their data warehousing into big data. So there is a Hive component in Hadoop. You can pretty much use that for your data warehousing. There is a Spark component in Hadoop. Imagine, we've all heard of probably in-memory analytics or in-memory processing. Now, this is a technology which is changing the way probably, technology is going to go ahead. When you're reading the data from your hard disks, it's slow. When you're taking it into RAM and computing, it's fast. Imagine a technology which does that across multiple servers in a distributed fashion. Not in one server, across your nodes of servers, in a split of a second. That's the power of Spark. So you're actually able to, do stuff in a much faster manner in memory. And, the most important thing which I actually like about big data is the contribution. Traditional organizations, they have brilliant consulting, they have brilliant people working on a particular product, enriching it. But let's be assured, no one can match the combined power of the world contributing to a project to make it better. And if it is active, it's viral. You have to understand that. If it's active, it's viral. If a project is active, people see value in it, people contribute to it, it's exponential growth. So the kind of space at which this feature richness is growing in this stack, in the big data stack, is immense. Is really immense. Within, traditionally you see products release 1 to release 2, you see what are the deltas. Look at the feature richness which is happening in the big data stack between release 1s and release 2s. I mean, that is mind-boggling. Lastly, what I feel big data provides you is basically a unified platform to do multiple steps on one single platform. So whether you want to do data warehousing, which is running your normal MISs and churning it out, whether you want to provide your analysts a view to do self-service BI, analyze the data themselves, whether you want to run machine learning algorithms on complex statistical data models, whether you want to do data integrations with upstream and downstream systems or third-party interfaces, it's a unified platform, and that's very important. That's very important. I will like to just wind up my discussion probably with one example. We did some brilliant ATM analytics which we felt was very cutting edge. Very cutting edge. We used the top of the line neural network algorithms to figure out whom are the customers we should be targeting for channel migration onto Yes Bank ATMs, which ATM should we be recommending, which customers we should not be targeting because they are just like ad hoc one time. Do we even have an ATM in that geography? By the road distance, not by the as the crow flies distance, by the road distance, to actually target them and say, you look, this is an ATM closer to you, why don't you use it? And we came with a brilliant model with brilliant findings. And I went to my CFO along with my CFO to showcase our findings and say, this is what we have done. My CFO was not happy. He said, for me, you've only done 50% of the work. Build me a platform which is not a reporting platform. What you have just done is done some brilliant work and built out a report. Build me a platform which will give this output to an action so that it can be acted upon. Give me a platform which will track the efficiency of those actions and tell me whether this model is going to be working or not working. Build me an integrated end-to-end framework for running analytics. I don't want my analytics to become an advanced statistical reporting platform. That is the statement that my CFO made to me, and that is the vision that we at Yes Bank are now working to achieve on big data using the power of Hadoop. With this, I would like to basically end my lecture, and thank you so much for having a patient listening to me. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Well, it's hard act to follow the previous ones. The morning one where Mr. Ghose laid out what SBI is doing, and right now Rajat, who added the technical edge in terms of in addition to the business aspects. So let me start with telling you what at ICICI Bank we have been doing for last 17 years. Yes, it's been 17 years since the analytics journey started out. 1999 is when we first thought of starting out with analytics, because that time one of the problem statements was we had a good amount of customers which we were acquiring on the credit card base, and we needed to look at seeing opportunities of expanding more spends as well as acquiring more customers and getting a better wallet share. More importantly, in terms of data, we all talked about analytics, but the basic element which Rajat in fact touched upon earlier was the element of data, assimilating data. So today, anything that a customer does, whether he comes and interacts you over a call, he walks into a branch, he goes to his internet banking, does a checkbook request, or any other activity that the customer does, leaves behind a footprint. All this was available earlier also, but now with the cost reductions happening, the technology being available, you are able to harness this information. Still, there is a large challenge in front of us. The challenge is legacy systems. Most of the people in this room have been working on systems which are there since maybe 10 years, 5 years. Yes, there are advances which have happened in those technologies also, but there is still an element of challenge of integrating this data and harnessing this information back into a useful form. Hence, the first and foremost thing that anyone needs to do when they're outlining their analytics strategy is figuring out what is it that needs to come, what is it which is desirable, and what is good to have. From that perspective, if you're able to break down your pie and say, these are the 3 things which I want day 0, these are the 4 things which I am okay to have on day 7, it helps both the IT team as well as the business set their expectations right. We all talk about acquiring customers. When we acquire a customer, that's the most intensive engagement that that particular individual who's there on the front line has with that particular customer. And what do we get at that point in time? We get in that point in time is something called as an application form. All of us in this room know how typically an application form is filled up. what quality of information goes in. Apart from the bare necessities, very limited is known about the customer, which is where the analytics journey starts with this thin file. This thin file is what we need to build upon, and that is where this engagement which I talked to you about a few minutes back in terms of the customer's footprint comes in handy. In analytics, we always talk about what kind of variables do you use, and the common answer which will come is demographics, which is there at the time of application. The customer took a home loan 10 years back. Those demographics still hold good? No. Most probably that customer would have moved on miles in his journey. Apart from this demographics, what do we do and we build in? So we have a new concept which we called as external information in the form of market. Market, credit bureaus being one of the service providers for that. So credit bureaus, you can ping and you get to know what is the customer's external footprint on the industry footprint, which is used both for marketing as well as from risk. But there is a new dimension which is emerging, which we call as temporal. What is temporal? Temporal is nothing but adding different kinds of layers to a customer's behavior which are not very apparent. I'll give you a quick example. I visit a particular mall on the weekend and I tend to withdraw cash from that ATM at the ground floor which is located because the mall food court doesn't accept cards. Now this information is very common, but how do I go back and ping it back to the profile? One, it tells me that this customer visits a shopping area every weekend, so he's a habitual shopper. Maybe he's doing it for entertainment or maybe he's doing it for his shopping needs. Two, it also tells me the pattern between his location, which is say a home location, his work location, and the most frequent places that that person tends to visit. You also have the time of the day or the preferred day when he's visiting that particular location. Keep adding this information over a period of time and you're able to build out different kinds of profile. Say for example, there is a business traveler, he's a salaried employee working in Bangalore, but he's making frequent trips to Delhi. How do I know that? Because I don't get the ticket information, but yeah, I do know that you swipe on the Delhi lounge in the evening hours, or you swipe in the Bangalore lounge in the morning hours. So these are all intricate information which are lying about in various systems. Getting this information back and harnessing this information to build a customer profile, which is what we called as a thick file, is what the BI or data analytics journey is all about. Once you are able to assimilate this information, building insights into it is the next step. And yes, there are various tools available, there are various models available, there are various techniques available in trying to do this. I'll give you an example. Now there's a new thing which is a buzzword going around called as geospatial. So a lot of people will be talking to you, coming and pitching you stuff which talks about geospatial. An example quoted by Rajat was a distance of a customer using an ATM which is a non-home bank ATM versus trying to push him to an ATM which is a home bank ATM because it has cost implications. Now in that scenario, it is a matter of convenience. I go down out of my building and I have say a HDFC Bank ATM and I'm happy to use it because it is right outside my building. An ICICI ATM may be across the road, but to go across the road, I need to go to the signal, take a U-turn or maybe walk across for 5-7 minutes and it's not convenient. Now this is the called as driving distance. So what is the driving distance which a customer is happy to engage with and which is not happy to engage with? These are all tipping points. For different customers, the tipping points may be different, which is what we all try to assess using various analytical models. Now, another part similar to the geospatial example is how do I allocate resources? So one part is the customer journey. The second part is your internal journeys of resource allocation. All of us in this room have had this problem statement sometime or the other, where we have been given a particular constraint saying, I will be only able to give you a manpower of say 1,000 people this year. Now, how do I allocate these 1,000 people across the country? Assessing potential of each geography. How do you assess potential of each geography? Because everyone when you go and ask will say, no, I need people, I need people. If you go down to a branch manager, to a regional head, to a zonal head, no one says no to people. Is it true or not? Now, If it is a decision to be made centrally and you say, I will give people basis the potential of that location. Potential assessment again is very, very judgmental. Somebody may come down to you and say, my market, there are plenty of untapped opportunities and hence I'm requesting you for this additional manpower. There will be some other people who will be coming in, and finally when you add up the total, it is say 2,000 or 3,000, whereas you have just 1,000 available. Assessing a potential using market information like the bureau, like the public information of census, RBI deposits, other things, add it to that layer which is your existing customer penetration, helps you get your market shares. And using these market shares, you can decide whether there are certain markets which you would want to penetrate because they are profitable, or there are certain markets which are good to go because they are less risky. In both sense, this is a decision which will be made analytically. Last but not the least, we talked about disruptions. Disruptions are the game going forward. They have been always there, they will continue to be there. One of the things which people have been talking about nowadays is the ability to hail a cab by just pressing a button on the cell phone. Uber, Ola, Meru, and they're all on the apps now. But it all started with Ola and Uber coming into the picture. Now, just imagine this. You have around, say, hundreds of resources on the ground, and there are plenty of potential leads which keep floating to you via your call center, via your branches, or via your web or ATM, because that's also one of the lead generation mechanisms nowadays. If you are able to allocate this lead to the nearest sales officer or the nearest FOS by just using this geospatial mechanism of calculating distance used similar to an Ola, look at the delight of a customer. A customer envisages interest on the website on a home loan, and within 2 minutes he gets a call saying, I am nearby to you. If you're free, I can come down and I can chat with you, or if you're okay, I can even help you with an application. Because that is when the customer is most likely to respond. The conversion rates will certainly start zooming up. So the power of analytics is not only about the back end, but also being able to deliver it to the front end. And that typically is done by having a robust CRM or an omni-channel solution. So I'll wrap up my point here by saying that you need to have robust processes in the back end, but you need to build in delivery mechanisms to the front end, and that is how a successful BI story emerges. Thank you for your time.